We're on to match 2. We've just managed to take match 1 against an unknown bug deck, running Crop Rotation, Stifle, Snapcaster Mage. It looked very interesting. It was very exciting. Definitely a post-death right brew. So we're kind of hoping to play something as exciting, play against something as exciting again. We're going to keep a solid but unexciting hand. We can afford to fetch for a basic here, and ponder. And we want the Past in Flames, and I think the ponder as well. So I think next turn, barring something like... Actually, no, next turn we're just going to fire off a fetch. We don't care if it gets stifled, we have enough land, and our opponent's on burn. So if we're going to fire off the ponder, we fetch first. We'll grab an Underground Sea because we're no longer even slightly worried about Wasteland, and we're better off just developing a mana base. And I think we need to... Okay. I'd be quite tempted to shuffle that hand, or to shuffle that ponder, at least some amount of the time. We want to Thoughtseize for Eidolon, and our opponent finds Pyrostatic Pillar, so we probably should have shuffled. I'm going to assume that Pyrostatic Pillar was left there as a budget Eidolon, so unfortunately we're playing against a budget burn deck. We'll just bring in all our removal and empty the Warrens for this. We're going to cut Ad Nauseam, probably one Past in Flames. We'll definitely cut a Therapy, a basic land. Duress isn't very strong. Okay, so we've kept the Past in Flames. That's reasonable. Just because it gives us an extra business spell. So these days I'm always trying to keep 8 to 9 business spells, 9 wherever possible, and we can go down to 8 for some matchups where Empty the Warrens is bad and the second Past in Flames is bad, or we want to say Dark Petition and Ad Nauseam are bad. Alright, so we're going to take the play. Okay, so we had removal, which I don't think was enough. I think we want to keep this hand. So previous hand, look, if it drew a tutor, we probably would have won. But we are drawing off the top of our deck with only a single piece of interaction. This I think is a bit better as we're going to get to Thoughtseize turn 1, actually turn 2. So I think we'll fetch turn 1, Thoughtseize turn 2. Okay, and we draw the Infernal Tutor. So we're going to play around Mindbreak Trap here because we can. So Dark Ritual into Thoughtseize. We will take the Fire Blast. The Fire Blast is the only thing here that might let him race Goblins. The Price of Progress is a 2-mana shock. Pyrostatic Pillar isn't going to do anything from here to us. And Chain Lightning kills either a Goblin or puts us on 11. It's not terribly concerning. The other reason to fire off the Thoughtseize there is it might, if he's got Surgical Extraction in hand, he might fire it off and give us an extra storm. We've now got a 2-turn clock on the board. And I'm not sure... so he'd need to draw 14 points of damage. So Chain Lightning plus a 3 mana. So we can do 6 to us this turn. Maximum of 6 to us this turn. And then based on what he's got, another 6 next turn. So I actually think there's no way he can race this. I'm basing this off, I can't do 6 to us next turn. Oh no, wait, he can. Price of Progress plus Fire Blast. So maximum damage is 12 when we were on 14. So Sweeper would get us, but that's it. Alright, we're going to take game 2. We're going to run the same list back. We don't have an incentive to change anything. And I think we're going to keep this hand as well. We have the Chain of Vapor for the Pyrostatic Pillar. We have a Preordain and a Brainstorm. So I think we're overall pretty excited to keep this hand. And I think turn 1, we don't want to play out the Volk. We actually want to Misty, grab Underground Sea, and Preordain. Our opponent's going to, okay, Goblin Guide. Alright, and Infernal Tutor is pretty good for us. So there's almost an incentive here to Brainstorm in response to the Goblin Guide, but I think we're better off just winning. Now we've drawn the Dark Ritual. We actually wanted to draw the Lion's Eye Diamond there. The reason we want to draw the Lion's Eye Diamond is because if our opponent casts Surgical Extraction, we want the Lion's Eye Diamond more than we want the Dark Ritual. We already have a ritual. We need a way of dumping our hand. And even worse, we're actually revealing the Lion's Eye Diamond to our opponent. So they're somewhat incentivized to Surgical if they can. Not that it ends up mattering here, because we have the Chain of Vapor that we kept for the Pyrostatic Pillar, and we have a deterministic win. So it might be possible for us to look. It's possible for us here to take one of 2 routes. We're pretty sure by now our opponent doesn't have a Surgical Extraction, but that doesn't stop him from having something like a Fairy Macabre. So we can. Past in Flames may or may not get us there. Whereas an Infernal Tutor into an Empty the Warrens would leave us, both leave us with a pretty high chance of winning. One, if we're successful, leaves our opponent just dead. So we're going to Infernal Tutor here. We Infernal Tutor, hold priority Dark Ritual, just on the off chance our opponent has some graveyard interaction. But there's nothing there, so we will just get the Tendrils. And that's